Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the special call finance meeting of August 23rd to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Chaplin,
Here.
Member Covert, Member Desart, Member DeCiani, Member Eckhoff, Member Garcia, here, Member Hart, Member Krajewski, Member LaPlante, Member Ozog, Member Pachalski, Member Renahan, Member Rutledge, Member Schwarzy, Member Selman, Member Tornatori, and Member Zay.
Great, we have a quorum. Thank you. Do we have any public comment? No public comment. I have no chairwoman's remarks, so we will move right on to our presentations. I believe our ARPA requests are we all set on that? From finance, all good on that? Great, thank you. Okay, then with that, we move on to the 2022 financial update. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, thank you, Chairwoman. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to kind of set the table here, if you will, this afternoon to talk about some of our other presentations that will be coming up. So a couple months ago, we did a fiscal year 2022 update. And at this time, we'd kind of like to update those numbers, see where we're at going into the fiscal year 23 budget. So at this time, we have completed 8 months of our fiscal year through July 31st. That's what we're reporting on. So basically, we're 66.6% through the year. So what I'm going to do is touch upon some of the major revenues that have really kind of, if you will, contributed to our surplus. So we'll start out with sales tax. I know we've given out a lot of information this year on sales tax. We still have 5 more months to go, and we're reporting through June of 2022. And to date, we're at 76.175% out of our $109.4 million budget. So you will see later in the presentation, we are going to project to be about $130 million in sales tax out of that $109 million budget. So there's quite a surplus going on with sales tax. Each month now, it seems that we're generating a little bit more than $11 million. That's scary. $11 million per month. That seems what the trend is. And to uphold the projections that we've made to meet that $130 million, we'll have to stay on that pace. And, you know, we think we have we think it's a very good possibility that we're going to do that. The state is now going to start sending us allotments that are for summer sales, and summer sales, if you will, tend to be pretty good. You know, you'll see here we're through June, but really that goes back to March and April sales because they're 3 months behind. So as we start getting into the summer months, hopefully we'll start generating even more revenue in sales tax. Moving on to income tax, that's another large revenue source that we have in the general fund. This is another area that's performed very well. To date, we're at $11.3 million and our budget is 11.785. So at this time, we are almost at budget with 4 more months to report on. So our projected for income tax is going to be right around $15 million. So we'll see a significant positive variance in income tax. Looking at cannabis sales tax and cannabis use tax, at this time, we have received 5 months of the cannabis sales tax. We've generated about $1.348 million. And on an annual basis, that's coming out to about 2.75 million. And that's what we're projecting. I think in the fiscal 23 budget, we're about $3.2 million. So you can see there from those receipts that it's somewhat steady, right around $275,000. So that kind of seems like a pretty good number as far as sales within the county for cannabis. Same trend for cannabis use tax holds true. It's a little smaller amount of about $240,000. We're going to be right on budget. So that's kind of the story, if you will, with cannabis. And then I want to move into the income statement. So on top again, you can see our revenues, and we break this down by major category, not line item by line item. But sales tax, the second revenue source down under revenues. You can see that in the fiscal year 22 projected, focusing on the second to the last column, $130.8 million. Other taxes, that's going to be over budget too because of cannabis. Intergovernmental, that's income tax and another revenue source called personal property replacement tax. That is actually doing very well too. PPRT is commonly called because of corporate tax returns. That's way over budget. And then everything else, as far as revenues, are holding on pace. Our budget was $210 million, and we anticipate revenues to come in at $240 million. Moving to the expenditure area, personnel, that's our largest area of expense. I think we've had a lot of conversations about personnel. We've talked about equity increases. We've talked about the problems that we've had in recruiting and holding on to people. So from a financial standpoint, that bodes very well. From an operational standpoint, not so much. But financially speaking, we are trending under budget by about 6%. So our budget for personnel, and that's all full-time salaries, overtime, benefits, health insurance, things like that. We budgeted $154.5 million, and we are anticipating 148.5. Commodities and contractual, those are kind of our what we'll call operating, also way under budget. Commodities at 56%, we should be at 66% right now. Same thing with contractual services at 42%. So trends are down as far as spending here in the general fund. We're projecting capital outlay. We just had a small amount of capital this year that comes out of the general fund. We're going to project that we're going to spend all of our capital, and we're going to do all of our transfers to other funds of about 15.9 million. So when I take, again, under the FY22 projected, when I take our $240.6 million projection, less our expenditures of $200.6 million, we come up with a surplus for FY22 of $40 million. And again, that's a combination of very good revenue growth and expenses that are down. Again, we were told to keep everything about 10 minutes. But anyways, a very quick update on 22. Nick is going to talk about some of the projects that we would like the board to consider with this $40 million. Just a brief note on reserve or fund balance. We talked about that a little bit during the year. We are right around 45%. If we added $40 million to our reserves, which I don't think we should, I'm not recommending that, we would be up 65% of operating expenses would be held in reserve. So that's very robust. So we think we have a lot of good capital projects that can be funded that will take the pressure off future budgets too.
We're just gonna hold questions till the end, if that's okay. Go ahead. Are you done?
That's it.
Okay,
So-
then Member Tornatore, go ahead. Oh, your microphone, yeah. And then Member Pachowski.
Regarding personnel, that reduction in personnel expenditures of $6 million plus, that's got to be because we're down in headcount.
Oh, absolutely it is.
So, I mean, assuming we can get people back,
Right.
that's really kind of a fictitious reduction. It's a reduction now, but hopefully
Right.
it won't be a reduction next year.
Well,
To
no,
that extent.
yeah, you'll see, we've taken headcount and we budgeted for a lot of the headcount. in a contingency fund. We did that this year too, knowing that, this trend of having trouble hiring employees was going to continue, but we do have the money. And we will be able to fund all of the requested headcount in the 23 budget from the departments.
Right, but I guess my point is the $40 million that you're saying we have, if we were able to hire all the people we wanted to hire, it wouldn't be 40, it'd be like 34, 33 million.
Oh, it would be less, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Member Tornatore. We have Member Pachowski next.
I like when you say we do have the money. What are other counties doing with their personnel and headcount? Because we always say we have great employees, and if we need to take care of our existing employees, we should do that. And if we have new employees, we should do that as well, because this is kind of like the golden time for the county budget. And I'm all for building and everything else, but the people that make 50, 60, 70,000 here, maybe we do something to reward them, because the head count is concerning. But if we have the ability to do something for our staff, it's a way of saying thank you. But what are other counties doing with their personnel issue? Because this has got to be the same in Lake County, Will County. They're all going through the same thing we're going through.
I'm sure they are. I could tell you that I looked at municipalities, I look at Naperville, I look at Aurora, I looked at Lake County. None of them are generating the amount of revenue that DuPage County is, especially in the sales tax area. This is, like you said, this is unprecedented. Inflation really hasn't hit the sales tax area yet because we're 3 months behind. I'm sure we're starting to see that. The number one thing that's happening is in 2022, all the online retailers now are collecting sales tax. That's just boomed our revenue collections. But I don't see this kind of growth in sales tax in other counties or municipalities. I think they're doing better. Nowhere near we are.
Okay, thank you. So I have Member Desart, Member Rutledge, and the Member Krajewski. If that's.
Thank you,
nice
Madam
of-
Chair.
yeah.
Jeff, thank you for the presentation. You said that our personnel budget is 6% under budget due to recruiting challenges. So, but just for a complete comparison, what percentage of our personnel are we under? Like we can't hire what percent of our personnel?
Our head count?
Yeah, our head count.
We
Is that
have,
6%
you know
as
what,
well?
I have a head count presentation for the 23 that I'm going to come back and do. We'll take a look at that head count.
I just wondered if the head
I
count
would
was the
round
same
it-
as the budget.
I would round it off to about 100 head count right now that in the general fund that we're under.
Okay, and what percentage of that, if that is our total head count? I'm just wondering if they're both 6%.
No.
Okay.
No. We'll get that number on head
All
count.
right, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Member Rutledge?
Thanks, Chair Chaplin. I actually have two questions. One's kind of going back to the ARPA request. So for the townships that have some of these bigger asks, how do we distribute the money? Do they have to seed the project first and file for reimbursement? Do we give them that money up front?
No upfront. We have to make sure that we receive all the paperwork, we vet it, which we've done a lot of already. And then we submit for payment, and we'll keep in contact with them as we progress through.
And is that going to be a barrier too big to get past for some of these bigger asks for some of the
No,
township budgets?
We're prepared in finance to be able to expedite that. But if we had a construction project, that poses a challenge because
Right.
now we kind of have to act as consulting contractor, if you will, to look at what they're paying out, what they're requesting, and if that payout is eligible. That is challenging.
Okay, thanks for that one. And then my other question is, so we did the pay study last year and 5% across the board pretty much. Has that helped your head count as far as opening pay rates? Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, yeah, we have that on
Thanks.
our.
thank you.
Okay,
That's it
thank
for
you.
me.
Member Krajewski?
Yeah, that's just what I was gonna touch on, is this 40 million is a surplus this year, and we're gonna talk about things coming. And I think the answer, Member Pachowski's and maybe some other ones, Jeff's kind of maybe using some of these revenue numbers as you're starting to adjust, and we're gonna start adjusting our budget for next year, assuming there's the same 240 million, and discussions that Liz and I and your staff has, is next year we're looking at just really off the ballpark, maybe like a $10 million surplus because of the pay study, all the new hirings, all the money that we're gonna give in the 23 budget for next year. The surplus won't be as great, and we're counting for all that next year. This 40 million, we're gonna focus on some specific things.
Right.
But a lot of the pay raises, getting everybody up to head count, and even additional staff is all gonna be in next year's budget, but clearly there'll be plenty of revenue next year, the way sales tax, income tax, cannabis tax is going, that we'll be able to support that, in addition to probably even having surpluses in the future too, at least for a few years.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, all right, great. Thank you.
I'll be back.
Those are good. Those are I think they're very helpful, and it's good to keep the board updated on where we
Yeah, I
are.
was gonna ask one thing, and Jeff or Nick, because we talked about that ARPA, 5.4 million of interest income from ARPA, but I assume that's gonna apply to our reserve sitting here. So is
Yeah.
there another X millions of interest income? You guys are-
So that's probably a question for the treasurer, but
Okay.
with the new financial advisor that was hired, obviously they're dealing with ARPA, they're dealing with general fund, they're dealing with special revenue, and we're hopeful to see, given the interest rate environment out there, we're hopeful to see an increase in that. I will follow up on while Wendy's loading the next two questions that came up. I think, Member Tornatori, you said, you know, if we, as far as the savings for the personnel, keep in mind, those savings, even if we hire everybody that's open right now, there's only 3 months more of the year. So we've realized the savings at this point, so it'll never go back to 34. I mean, and even if you instantly hire, which we won't, we're still gonna experience a large portion of that 40 million. The other question I think Member Desart had was, how far are we down? And I'm kind of stealing some of Jeff's thunder in this one. As of July 15th, we have 1,355 general headcount that is in place, full-time employees. Our budget is 1,550. So we're about 150 short right now. So now my turn.
Yes,
And
now
Jeff,
we're on
you were very
the-
quick on that one. So well
Yes,
done.
thank you. Now the
So
2020.
we'll start it off for the next slide, please.
Oh, members A is coming in now. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I have to do the thing to read. them all.
You have to make a motion to,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, he's in. Okay. Okay, there has been a request to allow remote participation from members A under section 7A of the Open Meetings Act. Pursuant to this section of the Opens Meeting Act, if a quorum of members of the public body is physically present as required by section 2.01, a majority of the public body may allow a member of that body to attend the meeting by other means if the member is presented from physically attending because of illness, employment, or family emergency. So is there a motion to allow members A to participate? Who was the motion? Oh, Member Garcia. So we have a motion by Member Garcia and a second by Member Salmon. All those in favor? Any opposed? Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Member Desart?
Can I just make a quick follow-up? So based on your numbers, our head count is actually down 11.8%.
Yeah, and the one thing I do
We're
want to
6%
clarify.
under budget, but 11.8% down in.
So a good portion of those positions are not being advertised. Departments have held off advertising for one reason or another. So the 150 is not, they're not all being recruited. A number of them are being held back by departments at their choice.
I'm sorry, I just want to finish that
Okay,
conversation.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, Nick, please go ahead and proceed.
So for members A's benefit, I will summarize Jeff's presentation in one sentence. There's 40 million in surplus revenue in 2022. So the task of the board today is to give us some direction with how best to utilize those funds. It is definitely not something that we can rely on for the foreseeable future. This is a one-time really benefit that I think can change a lot of things in DuPage County. So along those lines, we looked at it in two groups of projects. One what projects could we do that would take pressure off 23, 24, 25, and 26 budget years to make future budget years easier? These are obligations that we as a county already have. That's the first group of projects we will go over. The second group is in attending all of the committee meetings, hearing the discussions in there. There were very good ideas for projects that would kind of transform the county moving forward. And so these are at the end for consideration as well. And then obviously it's wide open discussion. If there's other ideas we can do, these are just kind of a menu of possibilities, but the first group is definitely will have direct benefits specifically on 23 and 24, if not beyond. And the one thing that everybody, and I've heard from a number of board members, okay, if we spend this and something goes wrong, recession, we have another pandemic, what happens? Realize probably 90 to 95% of what we're talking today will be reserved for a project, but will not be spent till maybe 23, 24 or beyond. If we have another pandemic, we have something, I will be the first one here saying we got to claw back that money and we need to use it for something more important, public health, some emergencies like that. So just because a decision's made, a resolution is passed in a month or two saying reserving this money for this, that money will not be spent for a good year and a half, 2.5 years. So just keep that in mind as we make decisions. Next slide. So the first group of projects we're going to go over are going to be projects that benefit future budget years. So first and foremost, we've already committed to the project for the judicial expansion. It's a $19.8 million project. There was a $14.4 million down payment made in 2021. That leaves $5.4 million still for funding for that. Our first recommendation would be to take that obligation, pay for it, and then we are done with that obligation. You guys know a lot about this project. I don't have to go in depth, but so far we are struggling with construction, keeping it on track, but we are on track. And I'll tell you, the chief judge has been involved in every single meeting, and we are keeping that project on track. We will come to you if there's a concern, but so far it's going well. So and at the end, we'll have a summary list, and we can talk about all these as if that's the will of the board. So next.
We would really want to hold questions till the end because a lot of your questions might be answered in the presentation. So we want to get these presentations through and then we'll ask questions.
Next one we have would be and we've done this before, we did it last year, is the contribution to the vehicle replacement fund of 3.25 million. We are seeing, huge pressures in delivery and the costs of the vehicles, elimination and reduction of the government discount pricing from the federal government. We're seeing a lot of pressures. The board's already made commitments for putting money into this account. We think it'd be good to fund this, and this will fund us for well into 24, 25, 26. The one I lived through the original time when we stopped funding vehicle replacement back in maybe 08, 09, because that was a budget pressure. It took us easily 5 to 6 years to catch up, and the quality and the reliability of the vehicles were really a problem during that. So by doing this, even if we hit a downturn in the economy where we can't fund vehicles, we have a safety net, so we don't have to go back to those old times and then play catch up for many years after that. So that's where the 3.25 million comes from. Next slide. We mentioned it this morning, I think, in technology committee, and it might have been brought up before. Our current ERP system, for those who lived through the last implementation, seems like it was just yesterday, but it's been 10, 12 years. We were informed that our current ERP system is no longer going to be supported after 2026. So we know that that is a big obligation that we have. Will 6 million cover it? Most likely not. This is a down payment for it. So we're ready to go. Obviously, our first course of action, not only ERP, we're talking about getting new HR system in place to help with payroll, to move that ahead. So this would be a down payment. It's going to take us a very long time. I know Anthony, Jeff, all of them, we're working toward even figuring out how to put it on the street. but it would be a 2026, but it will take 2 years to implement. So what our recommendation is, we put a down payment on this. And then with this and one other project, we would recommend, let's say the surplus comes in higher than what we're anticipating. We would probably sweep any further additional surplus toward this. So we do it. And then my guess is we would finish the payment on this in 2023 as part of the budget. But this is an absolute obligation we have that the board will have to consider in 24 at the very latest. Next slide. Next one that we recommend funding is our tort liability and other associated insurance needs. This is simply a large account that a lot of different expenses are taken from. We have our insurance, liability, a lot of different things. Current funding in there is only about $500,000. We recommend taking up an additional $2.5 million. Next slide. In JPS, the sheriff submitted, and you're going to see a couple of these in the 2023 budget. They submitted a 2023 capital request in JPS that was tentatively approved by the JPS committee, equaling 2.5 million. So we simply took their 23 requests and we have it here to pay it in 22, so that we take that pressure off of 23. It also has a benefit of many of these things will have immediate benefits if we buy them, get them in place now and get them active as we go. Cybersecurity, the X-ray machine, they will have immediate benefits, and we take pressure off of 23. Next slide. Same thing with facilities management. This is not new capital project. This is just taking care of what we own. The typical run rate for facilities management is between 2.75 and 3.2 million a year. And that's no new capital project. That's taking care of escalators, elevators, broken equipment. Like this morning when this room was a little bit too cold, a valve broke. And so there were, that's what they do. And with a couple million square feet, there's a lot of maintenance that has to be done. So this once again takes pressure off the 2023 budget, so that we simply put this in an infrastructure fund and then it's used during 23. Next slide. Along the same line, information technology, they submitted in their budget for 2023, 582,000 for capital improvements. That was approved by the technology committee. We simply took their request out of 23 and we're pre-funding it out of 22 to both take pressure off of 23, as well as put these in place to get the benefits for it earlier rather than later. Next slide. So that was the list of, and we'll have the summary list at the end here, but that was a list of projects that are a commitment that we've made as a board, as a county, to future projects, and will take tremendous pressure off future budget years. So the next group of projects are new projects, new initiatives that this is really where most of the discussion will likely take place in this area. So let's go to the first one. So you've heard it this morning, the care center needs. I don't need to go in depth on this one because I think Janelle did a great job this morning. We've already talked about the 3 million in additional ARPA funding. This is the 3 million funding piece out of the 2022 surplus funds available. Then it will be a fully funded project and we are off the races with building. So unless if you want to go more in depth with this one, I think we kind of hit this one pretty hard this morning. Next slide. So in for a couple of years now, and especially in the last transportation committee, it was brought up that with DOT and the RTA tax, they haven't really gotten any or a small piece of the RTA funding. And the thought process is, I know it's a down payment and I know that it's a far cry from some of the other counties what they're getting, but the thought process would be a $2 million contribution out of the surplus to Division of Transportation to have the committee decide how best to spend that. We are examining whether that's feasible moving forward, and we will work with Chair Pachowski as well as Chris Schneider to do that. But this would simply help in their projects, overall projects, for 2 million funding. Next slide. So this next one very excited to offer this. And before I even get into it, couple things first. You're going to see in here, I'm going to go into it, that we have a very, very generous private donation to make this project move forward. And those donors are actually here with us today. I'd like to introduce Ann Boyce Claire and Jeffrey Jones. If you want to stand up. This is a project, and I can tell you that Sheila, or Member Rutledge, helped bring this to fruition. And before I get into the details, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Nick, for the presentation. And Ann and Jeff, thank you so much for being here today and for being our champions on this, because I had raised this issue before and everybody said, oh, we get such a great rate from Commonwealth Edison that it just financially doesn't make sense for us. But from a leadership perspective, I fully believe that this is the right thing to do for our county. We have got to get off of fossil fuels. Solar is becoming so much more, I don't want to say popular, not the right word, but even the car manufacturers are, nope, we're going electric in 5 years. So we've got to kind of jump on this, being able to generate the kind of energy that those things will take without adding more pollution to our world. So thank you so much. We met not quite a year ago when you funded part of the project for the forest preserve. And I did go to one of the rollouts for that. And I'll be perfectly honest, I was hoping that we could bring it to our county as well. So thank you for, yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And again, thanks for being here today.
So like I said, this is one of the ones that I'm very excited about, and to explain what we have. And we've done quite a bit of due diligence to get where we're at. So what our vision is for this project is to build a 125 kilowatt solar array on the top of 421. It would be, you can see there where A's around it, and right off of there is a surface parking lot. So that's the end of the building. That would be the southernmost building that we're going to do. The project itself totals $443,000. However, with a $50,000 private donation that was so generously offered, we're down to $393,000. That makes the whole project, the ROI work for the project. But so I'll do the money part first, but there's about 3 components of this that I want to cover. So with that, there's also right now ComEd rebate program of $31,000. And then what we call SRECs that will generate $134,000. That comes back over time. And so with all of that incorporated, solar array, they're expensive now because they're so popular, but we still have a payback of 16.5 years, well within the life cycle of the products we're putting in. So beyond the fact that, yes, we're going to save $11,000 to $15,000 per year for electricity, we do have an ROI. It does pay for itself over time. That's the economic side. Obviously, we all know the environmental side, but the side that I'm very excited with is we're going to use this as a huge educational tool to the residents, to the youth of DuPage County. We're going to really feature it on our website. We're going to really, really make it a part of who we are. We already have some solar here on campus, and we're going to merge the two, have a lot of educational opportunity for them. So if this is one of the projects moving forward, we anticipate this getting off the ground in spring of 2023, as long as the supply chain for the panels work. So next slide. The next one we have is for consideration is a stormwater project along Winfield Creek. In talking with Sarah over, I think she's here today, in stormwater, for a funding level of $398,000, they are able to potentially get another $598,000 in matching IEPA 319 grants. So for $398,000, we can do $1 million project along Winfield Creek. So not only is it going to benefit Winfield, it'll benefit Wheaton, and it'll benefit here on DuPage County campus. Lot of good components of that project. And this would be the seed money for a much bigger project, obviously the $1 million project. And then they think that the work would be completed within about 2.5 years. Next slide. So we just had this discussion on this next one, the Clean and Lean program in development committee, I think this past week, right? Remember Tornatori? So this is one that has been very, very successful over the years. If you remember, we got seed money from the Illinois Housing Development Authority back in 2019 of about $250,000. We have done a tremendous number of projects. 86 properties have been revitalized over that time. Either we've cleaned up maybe junk and debris. We've actually gone so far as to demolish entire houses. It's a very successful program. The residents of the neighborhood, you know, all the residents, the neighbors, they always welcome it because it's been a blight on our subdivision for a while. Well, we've reached a point now where this program has exhausted its funding source. It is supposed to be self-fulfilling because we get the money back in liens, but a lot of those liens are out there right now. Court judgments, it could take a couple of years to get back. Our proposal would be to fund with another 250,000. And we think that level, given the other 250,000, will allow it to continue on indefinitely without additional funding level. It should be noted, right now, we've got 6 to 8 properties that are ready to go to judgment if we did have the funding to move forward with the Clean and Lean program. Next slide. So the next consideration would be 150,000 donation, but I understand, Member Krajewski, that it might be a little bit higher than this. Is that correct?
I think I forwarded to Jeff. It was like all detailed in there, was like 212,000. And I think the chief is from.
Yeah, so this is 100,000 or a little bit more than that would be for equipment and training supplies. 50,000 would be for the ongoing operational costs. And I know everybody here knows Merit is obviously a joint task force of all of the police forces within DuPage County for contributing. So that would be the contribution for 2023. We moved to 2022 so that we're taking out of the 2023 budget. And it would go from potentially 150 to 212. That's something we have to work out and figure out. Next slide. For this, I'm going to actually call Sheriff Mendrick up here. I will start off on this one a little bit, and then he can take over on this. So this is, as we all know, over the past couple of years, we have purchased a number of response vehicles for the sheriff. Both, you know, you have Ilias, you have what the sheriff has, bomb squad, a number of very important vehicles. The problem is we have no place to store all those. We are out of storage for vehicles across the campus. So what we've been envisioning, working with Sheriff Mendrick and his staff and our architect, is how do we do this? How do we fit it in? And how do we make this so that we can handle some even expansion over the future? Because right now I know that the sheriff will detail, he's got vehicles down in Naperville, he's got them all over the place. So all of that is response time. It's how we do it. So our thought is right off the jail A building, within the secured area, there is room to create a garage, for lack of a better term, that will house all of these emergency response vehicles, 16 vehicles, trailers, including the Ilias and bomb squad. Our oldest and most dilapidated building on campus is our SWAP building across the road. This will replace the functionality of the SWAP to allow us to tear it down. OEM also, OHSEM also is lacking in garage and storage space. This solves that issue for them. We have some training space in there available. Ilias and flex space in there. This is one of those, like we said before. And I will say, for those familiar with it, this is one of those, it would be right in the spot where Hope Garden is. But we would relocate Hope Garden on the roof of this. It's actually linking to the jail A, and it would actually be a larger area than currently exists right now. So it really does fit well there, and it's secure. And I will, like the other projects, this one, we would not even start construction until probably 2024. So if there is a need for this money for some other emergency, it is there. We have a lot of design. This is very preliminary, very rudimentary, but for that, what I will do, I'm going to turn this one over to the church.
Thank you, Nick. Good afternoon, county board members. Thanks for having me. Thanks for your consideration for merit. You know, just to put in perspective, merit has really never been done. They keep saying it's a national model. I haven't seen the model anywhere else. Since its inception, August 1st, 2019, there's been over 900 emergency responses with merit. So we are keeping you safe with that combined response team. So I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and discuss the building of a garage at the 501 building. I know for a few years now, we've been discussing a need for a facility where many of our vehicles are owned, or so many of the vehicles owned by the sheriff's office, somewhere where they could be stored. First, I want to say this garage is not just for the sheriff's office vehicles. What we're proposing includes space for the Office of Homeland Security, emergency management, us, merit vehicles. Their vehicles too are currently stored at the 170 building, OEM, over by DOT. This new garage will allow for their vehicles to be in one central location with other emergency responder vehicles, as their work is essential in large scale incident situations. Additionally, this will give a secure location for them to store additional files that they're required to keep. Most of the additional space in the garage is for the sheriff's office, but it is necessary space. Our vehicles, equipment, training facilities are spread throughout DuPage County in its entirety. For example, ILEAS, we work with them. That's the national, or I'm sorry, the statewide response team that has all the equipment. The ILEAS Bearcat and bomb trailer are not stored on campus, which causes a delay in response time. A deputy needs to run to a different location to grab his equipment and then bring it to the scene. DuPage has always made public safety the #1 priority, and a central garage facility will allow me and my team to ensure quicker response to emergency situations through a centralized storage facility. I truly cannot stress enough how beneficial it would be to have all of our emergency vehicles in this one central location or one umbrella, making it that much easier for response to major incidents. And like I said, 900 major merit requiring incidences in 3.5 years. It's getting busy out there for us. Additionally, the various mobile command centers, Bearcats, bomb squad equipment, and trailers remain outside and exposed to all elements year round. This atrophies down to the metal. I mean, through these vehicles, actually, though these vehicles can handle that type of weather, I want to ensure the longevity of these assets. We don't want to waste anything that you're giving us, and ensure they remain in the best condition that they could possibly. And indoor storage is really essential for some of these vehicles, especially if they have technology inside. We are still anticipating the vehicles procured this year, and we'll need the storage space for the new vehicles as well. So though this facility will be primarily for vehicle storage, there's more to it than that. We're looking to have some of the space for training, both for detainees and for deputy training. It'll also allow for an area for swap, to have an office and a wash bay. And, you know, when we clean the cars, you know, even the county cars, you know, salt is a killer for you guys. It's going to atrophy your vehicles, your big heavy equipment, and that we can help with that. The office will house the sergeant who oversees the SWAT program. Additionally, the space will allow a meeting area for SWAT participants as well. SWAP is another alternative to arrest that has been working out very, very well for us. And, you know, SWAP, you have no idea how much municipal, county, how much money is saved. Every kind of cleanup program or building a garden area or landscaping, that's big money. That's all provided by our SWAT people to the savings of millions of years when you spread it all over the county. Our current SWAT building across the street is long past its useful life. It's dying, and this facility is essential to keep this program moving. We're very proud of our connection with ILEAS as well, and know they currently store equipment with us for training exercises required by state mandates. By having these training sessions right here at our facility, it'll save us on travel costs also for our deputies, allow us to continue a very robust relationship with our state partners, and it will make us the leader, the centralized location for all this equipment, so we don't have to ask somebody else for it. My favorite aspect of this building, though, allows the county to continue to be a leader in alternative training for detainees with the expansion of Hope's Garden. This would be placed on, like Nick said, on the rooftop of Building A, allowing more individuals to participate in the program. It'll probably be going from about 2,500 square feet to around 4,000 square feet, because the horticulture program is working. The amount of food we're giving to food pantries, never thought we'd be generating 300 to 500 pound yield each time. It's amazing how well that was working. It also allow more individuals to participate in our programs, like our tattoo transformation program. Hope's Garden has been a huge impact, allowing detainees to learn new skills that they're able to use, because these are life skills. They're also college credits. They're getting people to go back to school. That's what we want, is education. We want trades. Again, I really want to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak about the possibility of a 501 garage at this time, and we'll take any questions if you have them.
Oh, you want to probably hang tighter. So we'll go,
Yeah, we're going to take questions at the end, Mary.
we're
Okay,
almost done, I
member
promise,
Rose,
almost done.
yeah.
So here is the summary of all the projects we talked about. You can see that the first group totaled 23.2 million. Those are the obligations for future budget years, and the new considerations for discussion of 16.7 million for a total of 39.9 million. I do want to bring to your attention on the next slide, actually probably 2 slides. Next one, just something, I don't have prices on these, some of them I do, that just to keep in mind is, and I've said this for years, I feel like a broken record, the parking decks. At some point, we do have to bring those up to current condition, and those are going to be quite expensive. What we envision for the parking deck as well as the ERP would be sweeping the remaining part of anything in 2022 and incorporate these in a 23 budget for whatever excess we have in there to do the parking deck, but that is not part of what we're talking about today. And the final one, and then we can do questions. I just want to bring to your attention, we have no money on this. We're still working with elections. We are working whether it makes sense to even consider a separate building for the elections warehouse. I don't know. We'll come back to you guys after the first of the year, but I know it was brought up by several members because right now we're leasing that down in Aurora, and we're running some preliminary numbers to figure out what the ROI, does it make sense? And we will come back with that. I have no idea where that's going to go. That won't be till probably January, February. And even if we did, it would be construction in 24, 25. I just wanted to bring that on everybody's radar. We are looking at that. So with that, we can, if you want to scroll back, Wendy, to, the projects, we can answer any questions you might have on any of these, and then maybe get a direction where the committee would like
Right,
to
where the
go.
committee wants to go. Yeah. Okay, so we'll open it up to questions. I saw member DeCiani, member Pachowski, member Rutledge. Oh, I'm sorry, member DeSart, member DeCiani, member Pachowski, and member Rutledge.
Nick, on the ERP,
know,
it seems to me that ours isn't too old. We upgrade our ERP. I know I've been here.
We did. What was the upgrade date? Do you guys remember? Live in 2014, so it's 12 years, and there's end of support in 2026. We've been notified.
Gotcha. And you would think, I know we went with a pretty robust system. There's no longer to support it. There's no upgrade software, right? Basically.
We would, it's, even if we go, and one of the options is going to cloud, the cloud version, but that's a new system. They have informed all their users across the country that that's no longer supported.
So it's planned obsolescence, it sounds like, so they can generate dollars.
Yeah.
The other question I have on the sheriff side, given the merit model, which I think is great, do we have any municipalities that might be able to assist us? I know Naperville is currently, but in a more central manner, maybe Carroll Stream.
You're talking merit, the merit component?
Yeah, the garage component. Would it make sense to utilize our municipal partners more versus actually building something here on campus? I'm just asking the question.
So we have Chief Hunter here, who's the head of the DuPage County Association too, as well as Bob Corp. But we're all work together. So we always ask each other we survey. Bob, do you want to add a little bit more? But we've asked.
We've had a lot of conversations when we have the executive board meetings, and everybody understands that we want to spread a lot of the merit equipment out throughout the county so that we have things in different locations. So there's been lots of conversation. There's no set locations yet, but all the chiefs are working within our municipalities to find spots for some of this stuff.
So-
The ILEA stuff is, we have to house the ILEA stuff, but some of the merit stuff that we've got from the board and some of the other stuff we got, that will be spread throughout the county for better response time to certain areas.
Yeah. So even with that, you think that this garage is important?
The WMD stuff has to be housed inside because that's the weapons mass response team for a nuclear attack or a chemical attack. That's the SWAT team that would specifically respond to that. They have a bunch of equipment that has to be housed indoors. Those are very large. And with our own internal problems, I know we had a problem not too long ago where our bomb truck was stuck behind, because of where we have to have it over at the garage once upon a time, it was stuck behind one of the snow plows, and we can't have that.
Sure.
To get the bomb truck to something when it's needed. So
We have over 36 public works garages. I know Elmer's is a pretty robust garage where we can possibly, just want to make sure you guys
Yeah, all the chiefs are working with all the municipalities, and once we have everything in place, then we'll, as the board for merit, we will then dole those out so that we have the correct response and the correct vehicles.
With the ILEAs, since most of our towns are all ILEAs as well, are those vehicles required to be here on campus, or can they be, say, in Elmhurst, which is ILEA?
Well, they're not, because they respond to everything like north of 80 and from Lake Michigan to Iowa, but we are so ILEAS it was Naperville forever, now it's us. The commander of ILEAS is from our agency, Sergeant Crane. It makes sense to have all of that in one location because he's the one specifically responsible for all of it. It just cuts down on inventory time, maintenance time, all that other stuff to have that stuff here.
You're on the far east side of the town, so now you decentralize all your border.
Right.
Town, which you wouldn't want to do. It's better to have more middle. So
Absolutely. That's why I mentioned Carroll Stream and other communities, but it being that it is ILEAS and has to go throughout the region, Elmhurst would actually be a good spot because it's got all the highways, every highway's around there, you know? Absolutely. Good. Very good. Thank you.
I just have a quick point of clarification. So you said that Elias was in Naperville, isn't in Naperville right now? And the
No, it was, so ILEAS is statewide. There's
Okay.
different regions for it, and Naperville took command of the weapons of mass destruction team many, many years ago. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, they had done it long enough. You have to dedicate a full-time employee to being the commander of that stuff. So they just were ready to get out, and then it was natural for the county to take over for that. So they asked us, we had meetings, lots of agreements, and then we took that over. But it is for all of Northern Illinois.
So then let's say the county doesn't have it and then it goes to Elmhurst or Wheaton or somewhere else, Downers Grove, then we built a building and then all the equipment's going to go over there. I mean, that's kind of what I'm hearing, that it was in Naperville because the gentleman from Naperville was our representative.
He was, and they had all the equipment
And
there.
and now we're moving it to DuPage. So we want to build a 10, but then what if in 5 or 10 years, DuPage is no longer heading it and it goes to Downers Grove or somewhere else? I mean, then we have this garage that we're not going to have our equipment in.
I don't,
then all of our Americans. See, what we're trying to explain here is that we'll never have enough support all of our equipment. There's nobody had that. Nobody has enough room for all stuff. Naperville was a burden on them. They were so happy to not have to store that stuff. And in the grand scheme of things, we will have enough equipment to fill that building and alternative locations for additional equipment.
Okay, so I guess my question.
That building's going to be so big.
Right, I guess my question is, so does the equipment have to follow the person that is heading the ILEAs?
no.
No,
What I
okay,
can tell you on that is that if that were to
Okay.
change, I don't see it changing. Naperville rented a building. And
Okay,
that's how they were doing it. They didn't build a building. But even if it were to where we weren't the command of it anymore, and I don't foresee that happening, everybody's happy that a larger agency has it. Then we could still keep it here. It would be up to whoever took over, say Elmhurst took it over, then it would be up for the commander of now ILEAS from Elmhurst to decide where he wants that equipment.
okay,
I would think he would be happy to have it in a large one location thing, like I said, because now you have to inventory it all, you have to maintain it all. When it's spread all over, that's very taxing.
thank you. Any other questions, member DeStiani?
No, it's millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment that we're talking about.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt the meeting, but we do have another member that wants to come in via the web, via our portal, so, or Zoom. So I'm going to read there has been a request for a member to allow remote participation from member Eckhoff under Section 7A of the Open Meetings Act pursuant to Section 7A of the Meeting Act, if a quorum of members of the public body is physically present, as required by Section 2.01, a majority of the public body may allow a member of that body to attend the meeting by other means if a member is prevented from physically attending because of personal illness, employment purposes, or family or other emergency. So is there a motion to allow member Eckhoff to participate? Motion by member Desart, second by member Rutledge. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, welcome, member Eckhoff. Okay, I'm sorry. We can.
Thank you. It's the last people hear from me.
Okay, member Desart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first listing of projects total, this is for Nick. The first listing of projects total $670,319. And if we spent every dime of that, we'd only have $2,329 basically left. So where's the money for the extra $16.7 million coming from? And I know that we're differing on the cost of the judicial building. I have 19.8 million and you have 5.4 million listed there. So you and I are about $14.4 million off. Is there other money from elsewhere we're going for the judicial?
Okay, a lot of
The
questions
billing?
there, I'll unpack them slowly. So
Thank
you as a board have already obligated 14.45 million to judicial complex. You're only off by 5.4 million. So that you've already allocated that. That was our shortfall that we knew we were going to be chasing in 23. But because of this money, we're able to take care of that obligation now. That's the only obligation left on it is 5.4
Okay,
million.
excellent. So that answers the first part of my question. Regarding that judicial project, are we going to be asked for an additional funding amount as with the care center where construction costs have increased by 40%?
Yeah, I can tell you that project is well on its way. We've opened up a number of the bid packages. While there's pressures all over the place, we are still on budget. Could I open up a bid package and there's something? It's possible, but we are very cognizant of pricing. And so far we've kept it on budget.
Okay, great. Do we have any loans? Like if we didn't do any of these projects, do we have any loans that we could pay off
No,
for $40
great
million
question.
to reduce our expenditures and increase our quarterly income by having those loans wiped away with this 40 billion?
So if you remember in 21,
We
we
did.
had surplus and we paid off the loans that we could.
Right.
We have a number of loans that are not callable. And I'm going to defer to Jeff on that one. I know we looked at that too. There you have a number of loans that are not callable, and then you have a number of loans. Build America bonds that I don't think are payable early. So we have taken care of all of the available debt that we can. We have certain debt out there, like with Ducom, when we took the loan and they're paying it back. Obviously, we wouldn't pay that off because so you have a number of loans like that, but our debt level is very, very low for a county of our size.
Thank you so much. My final question, Madam Chair, and this is for Sheriff Mendrick. For all of you, actually, are we working throughout offices and departments? Because DuPage DOT is knocking down a building and building a brand new garage as well. Could we either increase the sheriff's garage and have DOT go there, or increase DOT's brand new garage to their building and have the sheriff's equipment go there?
Well, and great question. I can tell you from the standpoint of having the secure area over there, that was a big component of it, because you will have inmates going in and out. You would add a tremendous amount of expense, but more importantly,
I'm sorry, you'd have the inmates going in and out of.
in and out of the
Ducom or
garage,
Sheriff's
because
garage?
the sheriff's garage,
Oh.
because you've got swap over there, you've got some training going on,
Got
but
it.
more importantly, the footprint. I mean, keep in mind the current garage that DOT is building is bigger than what they have right now. It's a
Right.
bigger footprint. So adding this footprint on, I don't think you can make it fit with all the parking. We're already really tight on parking over there. We could absolutely explore whether it's feasible, but my guess is at the end of the day, it won't be compatible between the two.
Right.
But we'll absolutely explore that.
It's a safety effort to that, by not having our guy alone, even though there's a lower. To get into a fight, there's only, so many people that could be across the street outside our
Right.
facility, attached to our building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it. Increases the security by having it attached to our facility.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as
I
far-
wanted to ask those questions and I'm glad that I did ask those questions. And I'm glad that we don't have any loans that we could pay off right now. So I'm in favor of the whole package. I just want. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a follow up on the building with the swap. So the jail has some empty floors, correct, right? I mean, we're not using all the floors in the jail.
Well, we would like to, but we're still having COVID issues. So we still have to do all the COVID stuff. We still have an empty fourth floor. Actually, our COVID issues are worse now than when it started, where there's been a new reintroduction of COVID. Omicron changed things because the masks didn't stop it. So it's lower symptom, but it's much more contagious. So we're still in full COVID mode in the correctional facility. We're still doing the vacant fourth floor. I don't see that stopping anytime
So-
really soon.
So is there any room for doing trainings at the jail? You know, I mean, like,
Oh, yeah,
could we
that-
repurpose the jail for, you know, because we're not.
Like tiling, drywalling, horticulture, welding, sanitation,
That's
that is all occupying those spaces that you're
That's-
talking about in the
okay,
jail.
great.
Yeah, and
Okay,
those are gonna
good.
stay there. We can't move those out.
Okay.
'Cause then we're taking people outside the jail. That's why we do them all in the jail, because then there's security.
Okay, member Ozak.
Thank you. My question is for Sheriff Mendrick as well. So we've approved some major vehicle purchases in the last, since I've been on the board for your department. Do you anticipate any, I understand you're not going to have room in this garage for everything that you might want to store, but for those particular really, really big ticket items, do you anticipate any other purchases where this may not be sufficient, or is that, are we kind of at maximum for the major type of equipment?
Well, I'd also, again, we do everything. Jim, sorry, put you on the spot. Jim Gunther, he's head of the DuPage Chiefs now too. We do everything in tandem. You know, this is not the sheriff's office asking for something by himself. We're representative of 37 police agencies. So I always include our head chief. He's the big shot. So Jim, if you know about any further purchase of any other.
Sure. Thank you. And nice to be in front of you again. One of the, thanks to your generosity, you funded a mobile command vehicle, which is a very large and a very expensive piece of equipment, very technical piece of equipment that we would love to house. And really, it's best to be put inside. It came in actually bigger than we expected because of the supply chain of chassis. We had to go with a larger chassis because we could get our hands on it right away. So it's an extra 4 feet longer than what we anticipated, but obviously we're going to use that space. What is obviously require a bigger space to house. So, and obviously if it's inside, it's climate controlled, it'll last much longer. We won't have to replace it. And we're really looking forward to getting our hands on that. One of the things that we requested was the crash vehicle. And that would go to all of our accident reconstruction events. That is by far our busiest component for being deployed when there's a fatal accident. Car versus, we just had, I think we had 3 this week. Pedestrians are getting struck at an alarming rate. But when we send out the team to handle that, we have a series of equipment. Drones are being used in accident reconstruction more than ever. We can put a drone up and it could take a series of about 60 to 100 pictures. We stick it into a program. It does a 3D rendering. We're able to get all of the detail and all of the measurements off of that. Off of those renderings, and that saves countless hours in manpower because throw the drone up, you hit a button and it does all the work for you. And we're able to get the teams out and back very, very quickly.
One other
Hopefully-
question.
yeah.
When you talk about other agencies, any municipal funding from the other police departments toward what we are providing for them? How exactly is that working?
Yeah, so we have a budget. We charge our annual fees are $6,500 per agency. So that's 6,500 times 36 agencies. We've raised that so we're 3 years old as a task force, and we
Okay.
started at 4,000. We're now up to 6,500. I would imagine in the future we're going to have to go back to the municipalities for more.
Yeah,
Keeping in mind that we are new and we keep on adding to the task force as we find needs. You know, just
Yeah.
in my tenure as chairman, we've added the drone team, we've added a public information officer component, we've added mental health professional component to handle a mental health crisis. So
as you get a better handle on what these things are costing, then perhaps their contribution could be more generous.
no doubt about it, but
Okay.
as I've learned as a chairman, so I'm in Westmont, you know, my town of 25,000 people, you know, we go from, you know, Wayne of 2,200 people up to Naperville of 175,000. So there's a huge disparity
Yeah.
in what municipalities can offer for contributions. And we're looking for the best fee schedule possible in order to cover all these expenses, but it's hard. It's hard to get equitable.
And you're new, so
Yeah.
there's certainly that. So,
Yeah.
but thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So I'm going to read the list that I have of questions, people asking for questions. So I've done member Pachowski, member Rutledge, member Garcia, member Renahan, and member Tornatori. So member Pachowski.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for the money we're getting to the Department of Transportation. But I just want to reiterate, I was on the board and initially the money was all going to be transportation. We were going to lose a 232 head count. And that's when public safety was added by I think it was Chairman Schillstrom, they got that passed. And, I think that was a great thing to do because we were drastically going to cut big departments. And I'm glad to see that, Department of Transportation, because every year Krajewski and I and the members of our committee vehemently argue for more money. So I'm glad that that was recognized. So thank you. My question is, to the tort liability from what's the most we've ever paid out? Because we have a $500,000 there now, and you're talking 2.5 million. Is that the number you want to use?
2.5 million.
And can you justify that figure? Because that seems out of whack. As unless you can tell me past years we've been up to that amount.
Yes, I can justify it, but I think that maybe we should probably go an executive session for that.
All right, well, my question is, I know I talked before, we have people across the street that make $12 an hour. I mean, I would like to see something for the people who make a little bit of money here. Maybe they get something. If you make under 20, 30, 40,000, we give them something. That's my personal opinion. And then as far as all our projects, these are all covered by the RVO, correct? Or not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Everything we do.
All right,
Everything,
good. I
the
just wanna make
responsible
sure,
bidding
'cause
ordinance would qualify for
That
everything.
is great because that's the way it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Pachowski. And yeah, and I'm really happy that we're, going to hopefully put that 2 million into transportation because, some of us have been advocating for that since we've been on the board. And we were the only county that wasn't
to give
using
them
our
100%.
RTA tax. So I think it's really important, and I'm always of the mindset that when you're using the tax dollars as they're intended, that's the best thing to do rather than divert it. And that's kind of sometimes when you get into trouble. So I'm really pleased with that. I hope we approve it. And with that, Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair Chaplin. Just want to say I agree with Member Pachowski about giving those who are really at the bottom of our pay scale a little bump up to, we've all struggled with that. But my question actually is for Sheriff Mendrick about Hope's Garden. I'm a garden geek, and so I love the idea of that. Moving it up to the rooftops expands your space, and would it also extend your growing season?
Yeah, actually, and I learned from geniuses from COD, College of DuPage horticulturists. I guess there's a type of dirt used that's a lot lighter, things I don't understand, but they have it down to an actual science here. Yeah, it'll generate probably about 25 to 30% more food. It'll be able to help us expand the curriculum in the class because we do the indoor horticulture and then it gets shipped out to the outdoor in between seasons. So we have a head start. There's also a composting class. All these are life skills. I mean, you can go back home and do this in your garden as a food source if you want. I mean, the food will be better than you buy at the grocery store. It's not treated with all that stuff. Yeah, this will help the entire program of horticulture. It turned out to be a big thing. I've had, I remember a female detainee a few months ago say, this is the first time I saw the sun in 30 days. And actually, when you hear that, you don't realize the magnitude of just being indoors and not being able to go outside. So there's a therapeutic quality to it. All that we see demeanors really change. They actually come back in happy. They felt like they did a good day and they're doing hard work, but they're loving it. And it's really an interesting dynamic to see. And that's why that garden's been so successful.
My son, when I go out to weed, he always says, you're going rage gardening, Mom. So it is very thorough.
I've learned a lot too. And we have a big yield in our backyard because of what I've learned.
Thanks, Sheriff. It's a great program.
Thank you, Member Rutledge. I have Member Garcia.
Thanks, Chair Chaplin. Got a whole list of things here because I'm taking notes as we're going along, but since Nick, you're up there really quickly, let me see what I've got to ask for you. The tort issues, I mean, how was that all paid for before? We have to go to
Tort
executive-
liability, if you go back to the slide for tort liability is a broad, comprehensive category that covers our liabilities, both judgments, all of our insurance needs, anything having to do with loss. I mean, keep in mind, we're self-insured at the county. So there's a lot of items that it covers. This money never goes bad. You put it 2.5 million in there, the money can sit in there for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. That money never goes bad in tort liability. And so it's funding the future.
Okay, thank you so much. The solar arrays, big proponent of the solar arrays. I'll be definitely in favor of that. I'm a little disappointed that we're not talking about more electric vehicles. As you know, electric vehicles, we had a discussion with the staff on that.
And the one thing I can talk about electric vehicles, I mean, maybe a little bit, you've invigorated the staff with that. Every time we have a new vehicle purchase, we're looking at electric, hybrid, alternate fuel. The problem is finding them right now, and the supply chain for them is so far out. And it's hard enough to find regular vehicles, let alone electric vehicles right now. So we've got to let that supply chain issue work itself out.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. I know that when we talked as a staff meeting, there was an issue with getting the electricity here on the campus to be able to actually have enough EV chargers on here. So I'm hoping that can be kind of discussed.
And I can actually, as part of the garage retrofits we talked about, we fully anticipate having a much more dynamic fleet, as well as both our fleet as well as a public. So when we outfit those, we're going to make them ready for electric vehicles. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to run the electric, because we still have to figure out how to power them, but we're going to make it so that they're much more convertible to everybody plugging in, because we know that's going to be the wave of the future.
Okay, good to hear that. Questions now for the sheriff. Merit, how was merit paid for before? Was that something, because it seems like, but now we're having to ask for money, but I know that's something that we kind of plan for each year. So I'm just wondering where that money came from before.
So we bootstrapped it. I mean, this didn't exist 3.5 years ago. We started with a small budget, 2,000, and it incrementally went up as our needs rose. We have used material. So, and don't think that with merit that we're just paying for everything. We use their tools also. They all have police equipment, vehicles, manpower. They're part of the teams. They come out, they're paying their employees to come out and handle calls too that are sometimes in unincorporated, sometimes in Bartlett, sometimes in Naperville or Addison or Downers Grove. So we all kick in whatever we can. And like I said earlier, municipalities range from very small to very large. And then Wayne and Naperville, I think, are the two ends. Right. And, crime doesn't understand borders. It's more like a virus. It's going to travel in a direction. Like when the Oak Brook Mall stuff happened, when there were all that stuff going on, you could see it coming in from the east and moving west until it hit Naperville. And
I appreciate that. I'm just trying to figure where the money was.
It's combined resources. But
prior to merit, we had Fiat and we had the major crimes unit.
Okay.
So we took those task forces and we melded them into one. So Fiat was 17 agencies, mostly in southeastern DuPage County.
Okay.
And so we came in with equipment. We came in with SWAT gear, vehicles, and a budget. And then we melded it with the major crimes task force on the north side of the county, as well as the SWAT team, Ducart, which was the former crash team for DuPage County. So there was a lot of things that we fused together. So we did start with some money and some equipment, and then just all the personnel, kind of put them together like a jigsaw puzzle is we're still currently doing.
And so this fund, the fees you would get from this would be just for this year, or this is something that's going to be needed each year?
Well, so the things that we propose for today are, more or less, wish list items that we had in our original budget that had to be cut out, things that will make us more efficient with the way we operate. But, with the change in legislation, with the change in technology, and one of the requests was for the drones. There's currently legislation in Springfield, which I think is House Bill 5654, which expands the use of drones for festival type events. So where, like a Highland Park incident, where we could put drones up proactively to look at rooftops.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so that was where, if that legislation passes, we're going to expand the way we can use them in a more proactive manner, which is, obviously safe for everybody. But that's not something we anticipated when we put our budget together a couple months ago.
Okay, that makes sense. So then that's where some of these fees would be going.
Correct,
where the money will be going further.
And can I jump on that too? So I didn't think about it that way too. So now when like he said, we used to have like a SWAT team called NIPUS, Fiat. We had our own SWAT team. We had all these different organizations, and we were paying money to all of those organizations. So, and on the back end of it, since we all did things a little bit differently, I'm a
Mhm.
cop, patrol guy for years. We would show up in a parking lot to a major thing and say, how do you breach a door? How do you breach a door? What tools do you have? What kind of tools do you have? And we would be wasting time trying to figure out how we're going to deploy in a joint formation.
Mhm.
We did this to get rid of all those redundancies. We work together, we train together, we have the same tools, we all know how we
makes
go in.
sense.
So now we get there, it's instant, it's instantaneous. So we cut out all of the slack that needed to be shored up. The whole reason that we came up with merit 3.5 years ago was large school shootings that we're worried about. That was the main reason that we said we have to be in a model to where we're responding immediately. When that shooting happened in Oak Brook, we had people on scene in there within a minute or two. We had hundreds of officers all combined. We saw merit work like I've never seen anything work ever before in efficiency. So
Okay.
that's why we do it.
All right, thank you. And then kind of talking about the building that you guys were asking for money for. It just seems like it's a $10.5 million. I just have such a hard time with that cost of that. It just seems like a lot of money to store a building. And I'm really, I mean, I'm a huge Hope's Garden fan. You know that, Sheriff. And it seems like they've done so many improvements in the Hope's Garden area, from planting fruit trees now this year. And now we're just gonna rip everything up for this garage, and I see, and it seems like there might be a little different spot for it, or a scale.
Well, we actually went over all that because I didn't want a growing season to get screwed up.
Okay,
So, yeah, what they said was they would be able to do it in between seasons. So it would, happen right after last harvest, then the skeleton and the roof would be done in the middle. We've already talked to the horticulturists, the fruit trees, all this lighter type of soil that they use, irrigation systems. Actually, they have one at COD. I guess they have one of those rooftops. So it would be, again, mimicking the COD model.
put the fruit trees on the top.
On
of the roof?
top on the roof, they've got the whole
Really?
rooftop deal at College of DuPage. We're copying off of a curriculum for
Okay.
college.
But
That's-
What would be the safety for the correctional people to go?
Well,
up
actually, it
and-
would be safer because right now we bring them outside of the jail
Okay,
to a gated garden, and then we go in there. This would be a second floor hallway internally, and you'd come out into the fenced in rooftop. So it would be more secure.
because that just makes me concerned with people if they're like, I don't know, if they're having a mental health issue or something like that, if they're on a roof and
The
they're.
fences that you see would be on the rooftop. The ones that you see around it now would be just like that, but on the rooftop, there'd be the same difficulty in the setting it's in now to get up through. There's razor wire, big coils of it up there, all that stuff. There's no
Okay.
way you're climbing over those.
Okay, I'm
fences.
just
Yeah,
concerned
yeah.
about the safety.
Secure,
of
it's actually
everyone.
more secure because instead of bringing them quickly outside and then back inside, it'd
Yeah.
be right from an internal door onto a rooftop that is gated and secured.
Okay, and do you think that one thing that stuck with me that you just said, and then I'll give up mine, give it to somebody else here, is you said that people haven't seen the light for 30 days. Is there any plans in the future of maybe having a time during the day when, even if they're not in the program for Hopes or something like, to be able to let them come out and see the daylight?
We try to offer that to everybody, but different people have varying security concerns. Some people, I wouldn't feel safe giving them a shovel or a tool.
Well, no, I'm
So
just saying.
we go case by case. We get everybody out that we can. We put these things out and we solicit volunteers. We push our programs. I mean, we
I'm just saying,
encourage,
like, for a recreation time, just for people just to get outside and see the sunlight. I mean, just like. to have-
it would be a lot of security involved in that.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's just something I think that needs to be maybe thought of in the future, so.
that's
okay,
what we're doing, what we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have member Renahan and member Tornatori, and then we can't see, but Jim Zay's been holding his hand up, but we don't see him holding his hand up. So we have member Zay and then member Krajewski. So member Renahan?
All right, great, thank you. Thank you for preparing this list. I was a little unsure getting started, but I mean, I appreciate all the existing and upcoming obligations, especially like front loading that. And I'm just wondering if we can't do more of that, because I know, like, for example, the sheriff's asked for $8 million more in next year's budget. And some of that involves, pretty standard things like work release. I know requested a lot to keep this garden that's so important going. I would like to see possibly more of that front loading to alleviate some of the costs down the road. I like that idea, and I would just like to see more of that.
So absolutely great idea. If you notice, everything on here is a one-time capital expense. You're talking operational. And unfortunately, we can't move this money to the operational for accounting principles because obviously we have to balance the budget with the revenue coming in. These are all one-time expenses. And that's where we came up with the list. And that's, we really combed through the 23 budget, 24, 25 to figure out one-time expenses that we could pull out, put in here and do that. Anything with personnel, that we're not putting that in here because that creates the issue of the imbalanced budget then.
So like reestablishing work release for the $430,000 that was requested in order to get that going again.
I think that's already funded. Am I
Well, it
wrong
was
in
proposed, and I know you talked a lot about
that?
things that were,
establishing it for,
it's
is that
for next, it
personnel?
was requested for next year.
Is that personnel or is that capital?
I think it's a kind of a combo, because I think there had to be some changes to kind of.
Jim, could you please come up to the microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, so it's both, but, and again, I'm being honest, like I was before, we're asking our extra personnel, that's what we need to run it, but I don't know if it's achievable. They're running off the job at a higher rate now than I was last time I was here. So just to put it in measure, I was a field training officer about 25 years ago. And I trained about 24 people over a 2-year period of time as a field training officer. I have now graduated or retired out about 8 of my recruits over the last month that I trained. So the people younger than me are now leaving. I'm watching my own recruits retire. And they are all citing 3653 specifically. They want to be out before January. It's just whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the challenge that we're dealing with.
Okay, that's not really what I'm
Your
talking
question
about.
here, I can answer your question. The 435, I just heard from finance. It's the 4 positions that we're adding to do work release. Facilities management, as we speak right now, is renovating that, getting that lined out with the current budget. That money is almost exclusively personnel, and that can't be rolled into this month.
Okay, all right, great. But anyway, I like the first grouping. In terms of the next group, I really am struggling with a $10 million garage. I mean, $31 million. We made such a big deal, right, with the care center, biggest project we've ever had. Chief Judge came to each one of us individually to talk to us about, a $19 million project that's going to help basically everyone who ever has to go to court for whatever reason. And I mean, I'm just, I'm looking, I got the list of which cars are going to be in here. And 8 of those are ILEAS. And I looked, a lot of counties, I mean, they rent facilities, this LEAS, whatever, they actually get federal funding to pay to do leases. I think there's opportunity for this group to pay into this if it's going to be $10 million, preferably scale it back hugely. Sheriff, I have 5 cars in here. I have 3 Bearcats listed. To my knowledge, there was 1 shared Bearcat, and then we purchased a second one. I'm not aware that there is a 3rd Bearcat, and there's also 2 command posts, and I thought there was only 1. So I'm a little confused of what's going in here because I'm not sure that all these are purchased. And if we purchased like 3 of these, and I'm wondering, why do we purchase things when we had no place to store them? I'm just trying to figure this one out here.
I can speak to the ILEAS ones. The second command post is the ILEAS command post. One of the Bearcats is the ILEAS Bearcat. So because they cover all of Northern Illinois, if something were going on in Rockford, that's where they will go then, and they will be there during the event. The other one is for the board is purchased for Merit. It will be staying here in the county. I think we got a little confused earlier when I was up here. It's my fault when I mentioned Elmhurst and I mentioned Naperville. ILEAS is all of Northern Illinois. So one of the benefits to having all that stuff here is that if something does go bad to that end, it is here. If it's not us, it could be Ogle County, it could be up in Boone County, and we're talking hours before it arrives. So selfishly,
See, by having possession of it, we are the ones that point. If we give up that ILEAS, if we give up our ILEAS holdings, somebody else will take them and it'll be far away. Was it Rockford? Was the next place? So now we need emergency equipment. I got to call Rockford and try to get emergency equipment to DuPage County during an emergency. And we see when these things happen, they're flashpoints. They don't take their time accruing. We would have to now wait for resources, life-saving resources from a different county.
Okay, I guess the kind of the second part of this is, I mean, I just think they should kick in some money here. And also Merit, what a great idea, right? It's fabulous. However, it's not something that you are mandated to do. I heard so much about what was mandated, unfunded mandates when it came to the Safety Act and what we had to do versus what we need to do and what we don't have money to do. And, quite frankly, this is not a mandated requirement that we support merit or do these things. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying, at some point, it seems that the municipalities need to come in a little stronger than $6,500 a year. And we're purchasing the vehicles, and now a $10 million garage is proposed. It's just feeling really heavy.
The ILEA's part, I'll let the sheriff answer there. As far as that goes, as far as them kicking in, they paid for the multi-million dollars worth of equipment that we will then have here. So as far as them renting a space, I'm sure that's all stuff we can look into, but their kick-in is they bought everything that they have now handed over to us and put us in charge in case something bad happens. That's all equipment that we wouldn't have access to otherwise.
And we were all paying into all these bifurcated systems before, so we're already paying that money. And yes, we are mandated to keep the people safe, county board member. We are mandated to keep DuPage County citizens safe during cascading criminal events.
Right,
We are
specifically
mandated to do this.
Okay,
Saying it's not a mandate.
excuse me. Let's kind of keep it a little bit down. Member Renahan is simply asking questions, and
I'm simply answering.
I know you're being a little aggressive, and it is a little intimidating.
No, when I'm told
when-
that I don't have a mandate
Well, it's
to
not a
run
mandate.
countywide security for the citizens. No, and that's somebody who doesn't have a future in DuPage. You're not running again. So you're making a decision on something that you won't even be here to see what happens. No, it's not
Yeah.
personal attack. It's
Yeah.
reality.
Okay, yeah, let's please stand comment.
Okay,
Member-
well, I'm still looking for justification for $10 million garage, essentially for a bunch of vehicles that not even all of them are owned by the county. So, what, I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Can I just was wondering, so these merit vehicle or these vehicles that are gonna be stored in this garage that are with ILEA, right? So you're saying that we need them here because we have access to them immediately, but if the vehicle is out in Rockford on an emergency, then we don't have access to it immediately. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so having a storage vehicle here does not guarantee immediate access to those vehicles. Right,
If, say,
Yes,
there
that is
are
correct.
riots, whatever, cascading events, and they're happening here and in Rockford. Rockford would get the equipment, we wouldn't. If we have the equipment, it deploys from here. We'd use it for our emergency, and then we would assist everybody else as we could. That's why we want to be leaders in law enforcement, have the resources in DuPage, and be able to deploy centrally with a combined team of police officers. See, we don't want to go backwards and go back to breaking everything apart and doing things different and separate and not together. We combined this merit for a very particular reason. And it's so we could handle these high scale, high caliber possible shootings. We're not using this for car lockouts. We're doing big things with what we have on our resources.
okay, thank you. So member Ozak, I have to get to member Tornatori and member Zay and member Krajewski and member LaPlante, and then I'll come back. Okay, so member Renahan, are you done with your comments? Okay, thank you. Member Tornatori?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we've got approximately $40 million in a surplus, and we've got a laundry list of things that we're going to spend that money on, as I understand it. Now, I apologize for my lack of understanding the accounting aspect of it or the procedural aspect, but nowhere do I see out of that $40 million surplus people and what we can or can't do for them. Now, unless that's plugged in somewhere else in the budget that I'm unaware of, or with the plethora of numbers I've been thrown this morning, I'm getting a headache. The reality is I'd like to see something, or I'd like to know why some of this anticipated surplus isn't being used for our people. Unless it's being used somewhere else, and if it is, I apologize for not knowing where it's at.
Thank you, member Tornatori. I think Nick will be addressing that.
Sorry to say that's our fourth presentation later today. So
Okay, all right,
so
buddy.
yes,
Okay.
we're on the same page, and absolutely we do have a plan to maybe resolve some of that.
Okay, all right, I will.
Yep. Okay, member Tornatori, any more questions? I guess not. Member Zay, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nick, when you retire, you would probably get a pretty good job as a used car salesperson, because everything is important here. my problem is there's a lot of good projects here, another 17 million on capital or more. Again, why can't we go on this on a case by case issue? Why do we have to already put it out? And again, what we saw at the care center, why aren't we putting 10 or 20% of this in reserves just in case for these projects? And I know you said you've bid it out, but you don't have a crystal ball. I've been there a while, and there's these things called change orders that come through that we see that people, all of a sudden, a project they're saying is going to be, $5 million. Next thing you know, we got a change order for, $750,000 because something came up. I mean, to go out and take a 40 million reserve and spend almost all of it down to the penny, I think is dangerous. I mean, there's a lot of projects, but a lot of these can go. I mean, we're talking about replacing the ERP system for $6 million in 4 years or 3 years. I mean, again, that's something we just put in here, less than 10 years ago. So again, a lot of this is important, but I think we got to prioritize, and we do have to be, all of these estimates are giving us in a crystal ball because we don't know. I mean, besides tort liability and some other stuff, I mean, these prices could fluctuate, and then we're obligated. And then what do we do at that point? So again, I just think we should go more on a case by case, looking at it, what we can do. And again, we laugh about this, but how much capital improvement can we do? And how much are we doing for food pantries and helping people and mental health and opioids that we could be spending this on, except doing more campus improvements? It just seems to be getting out of hand at some point. It seems like we won the lottery and, we're going to be on the 4th Street in 4 years because we're doing all this, and it's great doing capital, but we all know once we build it, we have to maintain it. And those capital costs down the line, no one showed me any future capital costs to take care of all these buildings and take care of everything we have. I mean, we have it built in. You just asked for $3 or $4 million just to take care of what we have in facilities right now. How is that going to go up over the years? So again, it seems like we're spending a lot of this money when we should be putting some in reserve. We haven't even talked about paying down pension debt, which we could probably do with IMRF. But again, it just seems like the capital is getting out of hand at this point.
Thank you, Member Zay. I have you on the list, Member Ozak, so I just got to get through everybody that hasn't asked a question yet. Member Krajewski.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And I agree. I'm glad that transportation's getting a couple $1 million. I know, as Member Pachowski said it, him and I have been saying it for a while, and I think we got in a meeting, you brought it up, and all of a sudden the staff's got it going. So thank you, Liz, you've been pushing for that too. So I'm glad, and I think we're going to factor another 2 million in next year and next year. And 30 million of this $40 million surplus, and I think it'd be beneficial maybe for Jeff to give us like a 5-year out projection as we're moving into that 23 budget, because 30 million of this is due to the revenues. And even if revenues stay flat, if they stay flat next year, and our expenses were the same, we'd have another 30 million surplus, but we're not, because you're going to get to the slides too. And we got presentation, or payroll and taking care of the staff, which is what a lot of us have been saying. So it's still going to be, even when you count all that, the new public defenders, the state's attorneys, and stuff to say that we're still going to have a projected probably surplus next year. And that's going to continue in a 5-year plan. So we may either be taking that money and adding it to the reserves. And some of this stuff that you have is projects you said are going to start in 2 or 3 years, which would have had to fund in those budgets, but now they're not going to be in there, which is just going to create surplus in those out years that can be used for something else if we have emergencies, et cetera. And I assume some of this stuff can be clawed back too, because if the project's supposed to be in 2.5 years and or 2 years and it doesn't go forward, things change. All we're doing is putting a placeholder for this capital.
Yeah, and to Member Zay's point, I mean, he raises a good point on that. Really, the only new building that is part of this is the sheriff's storage garage. That's it. The other ones are obligations that we already have. I mean, I guess the solar array is the other one out there, but there's really, that is the only new capital in here. But you are correct. A lot of this can be brought back. And on top of it, when we do the 23 presentation that Jeff will do after this one, a lot of the items at the top of the list there will come out of that budget. They're not incorporated. So if we do approve the top of the list, at least, it's going to take tremendous pressure on the 23 budget. Take a pressure off.
And I say, and we're doing a capital campaign, on the animal services side, whatever we receive on the capital campaign, the loan's already factored in next year's budget. That's just gonna create more surplus.
Correct.
The extent
That's a
that money
$4.5 million loan.
that comes in, et cetera. And just with, we're a county of, a million people, bigger than 6 states. I mean, I think we should have our own. I like Merit. I'm not getting a debate about the garage, but I like Merit, the concept of what's going on. And years ago, when I was mayor of Downers, we had our own SWAT team, as did, Naperville and the county. And then we kind of disbanded it towards the end of my term there, but we wound up joining Fiat. And I think now the organization is great in how we're doing it. We're adding a lot of extra components to Merit, but they need a lot of different things. As I was looking at these accident reconstructions, the drones. The request was 211,000, but I think we need to give these officers the tools they need. I'm not going to debate the merits of the tools that they need to carry on what they're doing. And if we either use the 150 or if we use the 211, because I see a vehicle in there, you and I talked, Nick, maybe you just move something out of the vehicle replacement if you want to balance it, or 200. But I'm fine with what you recommended. I think there's more opportunity to do other things. But I think a 5-year plan, Jeff, would be nice to kind of see what we're thinking over the next 5 years, revenue projection wise, and then expenses.
We actually do that. It's in our budget, and we
I
can
understand you have it. I'm just saying sometime for the board here.
Sure.
Because we can see, this, we created surplus last year, and we kind of went, in my opinion, under on the revenue side, and we can see, the way trends are going, the surplus is even bigger this year because the revenues, like sales tax, is 109, and we're exceeding where we were at. But I'm fine. You guys did a great job on this whole presentation. Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you, Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante?
Thank you, Chair. Some of my questions have been answered since it was a while ago. So I just wanted to say, kind of echo what Member Krajewski just said. I think the fact that we have a $40 million surplus and between 45% in reserves up to, as you said, if we were to put this in, not that you recommend it, but into reserves, we would get to 65%. So we are doing a really wonderful job. And this is a robust and healthy budget that we have. So I would like to just, tip of my hat to you for this job and for this presentation. Certain things you do have to fund. And I know that when the sheriff in 2021 asked for those tasers and body cams and the training, that was important to fund. That was also caused quite a, as the saying goes, a robust debate on the board floor. But these kinds of things, sometimes, it's important to look at them closely and keep an open mind and see what's best for the county at large. So just wanted to say thank you for that. And also I want to make sure that our residents of the jail, they are also eating what they grow, right? Okay. Okay, good.
Part of horticulture is palate. So while they're out there, they have to make sure they're doing it right. They have to know what it tastes like. They make tea out of the leaves. They do all that stuff. That's just part of it. Part of horticulture and training is you have to know that what you're producing is produced the way you want it to, that it tastes right, that it's robust, that it's the way it should be. So yeah, that's all part of it. And that's actually a big thing for them.
But it's not served in the jail, though.
No, we have actually very specific through accreditation nutritional standards. So we can give some extra, but we still have to do our exact nutritional budget that's required by the American Correction Association.
But the majority of the inmates are not getting.
Correct.
That's a bummer.
But I will say that since we do have limitations on what we can bring into a jail and serve, this food is funding so many food pantries, local food pantries, all of it. And the yields have been averaging about 400 pounds a yield to the food pantries.
Okay.
And that's very, and I too am very proud of this garden because it was a collaboration between myself, Scarce, Sheriff to get this garden going. And it really is a great thing that you're doing out there, but we just had to be, when people ask questions, we have to be sure that they get answered. So, yeah.
And I'd like to just say to Member Rutledge, as Chair of Environmental Committee, this is one of the greenest things you could do is grow a rooftop garden. So it has a lot of other benefits as well.
It really sounded interesting. I had no idea that you could do a rooftop garden until I talked to COD who's doing them already.
Rick Bayless in Chicago with Frontera Grill, they have one of the most successful and largest producing rooftop gardens. So maybe we can hook up. You can teach us how to make salsa. Exactly, exactly. There we go, there we go. I see it happening.
All
Netflix.
in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member LaPlante. Member Ozag and then Member Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Before I understand the need for this garage, but you're looking at 25% of our budget or our $40 million surplus. And before I could support this, I definitely want to see a cost per square foot. And I also think that you would really need to look at other alternatives. I mean, perhaps these particular, the very largest vehicles, consider corrugated steel buildings, something like that. I'm not looking for aesthetics right now because $10 million, when what I'm seeing here is a garage and some office space, seems really excessive to me. And I'd really need to be convinced of that because I would really like to see if we have this surplus, and again, one time, but I'd like to see some of our money to be considered for affordable housing. Again, economic driver, and our lower income people are really struggling. And also food insecurity. And I understand that we do support community services, food pantries, et cetera, but we're coming out of a really desperate economic situation for many people, besides the pay scale of our own employees, which in several situations is not that great. But before I could support this, we'd have to look at this as, I consider it a really large expense. And I think there's other things that we could consider doing with this money. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ozag. Member Garcia.
Yeah, thank you. Couple things I'd forgotten to mention before that I would like to put in the future of the central receiving center that's going to be coming forth from the DuPage County Health Department, because I think this is something, you know, members A brought up, the mental health is not being addressed. I think this is something that should be addressed. I know they're going to be bringing it up later this year, so I want to make sure that we have some money set aside for that, because that's something that we're going to need to help people who are having mental health issues instead of going to the correctional center, would go here and get the help that they need. Number one. Number two, I have a little bit of concern, and I know we have a robust surplus of funds right now. But when I hear that the care center hasn't been redone in 30 years or longer, and we've got other things that are falling apart, you know, I really want to make sure that we have some kind of plan for the future, that we're putting money aside so that when this happens, because I don't think, hopefully we'll never have another pandemic again, that we're going to have this surplus of money. So I want to make sure that we're having some kind of plan that, you know, we'll have like a fund in place so that when this does need to be replaced, we can get it paid for at that point in time. So I'm sure that you're thinking of that.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, I mean, over and above all this, there's approximately 100 million that we have in reserves as a county. So we have the 100 million sitting there that we do add to it every year. We add to it. So that is there. As far as the condition of the buildings, I mean, I can tell you that over the past 5-10 years, we have done a tremendous amount of updating. The care center is kind of the last of the areas that need updating.
Okay, and I'm sure that's right. I just, you know, I'm coming into this, I'm kind of new on the board and I'm just trying to make sure that, you know, when I leave or when we're 10 years down the road, we aren't saying, oh, I wish you would have saved some of that because of an issue that we now have. So.
And you know, Member Garcia, we kind of talked about that when I had the meeting with the care center. We talked about like a maintenance plan.
Absolutely.
So when we had the actual architect and the other woman here, you know, we said maybe you could put together like a maintenance plan for us so that we can keep up with the maintenance because we're making wonderful changes on this campus at our judicial building, at the convalescent center, everywhere. So it'd be so beneficial if we could, you know, have a great maintenance plan and then fund that going forward too with some of this money.
Yes.
That would be
I agree. Thank you.
beneficial. So thank you for the comment. Member Desart?
However, I agree with Member Zay, who said that we need to, we're like over here buying ourselves Louis Vuittons when our neighbor is hungry and out of work, and we need to really give our constituents consideration, and some of this money needs to go to people.
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
he said. So I would, I would recommend some of this money going to people.
Yeah.
And some of the money being saved.
Yeah, well,
as well.
some of the investments are going to people like our judicial building and the convalescent center. That's directly helping
It
people. And
is.
it kind of could go in that community service pile to. I
I'm
think, at
just
least
saying,
it-
because
right, no,
we
I
have $40
totally
million
agree.
does not mean we have to spend $40 million.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why I think we need, do we have any more questions? Because okay. No more questions. So what I want to do is, so if we go through our obligations, right?
Bring that back up.
in talking with Nick and Jeff, Brian, you were there, I believe, as well. When we were talking about our obligations, and we're going to have an executive session about our compensation as well. But if we can, yes, if we can fund these obligations right now and put the money away, that takes pressure off the general fund to pay for the salary increases for at least the next few years. So that's why it's really important that we make a decision on these, on the obligations that we have. And I know we talked about the ERP system, and we just, we purchased one, I think 10 years ago for 7 million. Now we're getting this one for 6 million. But just talking with some of the employees here, a new ERP system is going to change their lives, because this system that we have is very difficult to use, especially with HR. So, this is part of the investment. I think getting this new ERP system is also an investment in our employees. So that's why I believe that one's very important. But if we want to go through, out of the ones that we have that we are obligated for, is everybody okay with what we have obligated? Can we push those through, or did you want to pull? How did you want to do that? I need to give staff direction. Are we okay with all of the obligations that we have, or did you want to pull any of the right? I'm going to do the obligations and then go to the new that are not, we don't have, we're not obligated, right? So I'm just trying to get some direction. Yeah, I'm looking for consensus on, do we want to go one by one on the obligations, or are we okay? You want to go one by one? Yes, so I'm on the top level obligations. Do we want to do all of the obligations, or do we want to go through? Member Krajewski. He's raising his hand. All the obligations? Okay, great. Okay, so Nick and Jeff. We did get consensus on the obligations.
So.
Did you? Yeah, the whole section. But go ahead. Did you want to say something, Jeff?
I do. I just want to clarify one thing. We still got 4 more months in the fiscal year. So remember, these are our best projections as of now. If sales tax goes down, or the revenues for whatever reason, we might wind up with 30 or 35 million. But we will come back and update you, but this isn't concrete yet. This is a way of setting the table, if you will, for 2023 and funds. Yeah, right,
We're
exactly.
not gonna lock it in. We still got 4 more. This isn't a final action. This is direction. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you'll have the 20.
Yes. Yes, yep. Okay, now we're going to move on to the potential budget and capital options. So maybe we take this line by line.
Madam Chair,
The care center. Oh, I'm sorry, Member Selman.
I'm sorry, did you say we were moving on or we're still here?
No, we are on this slide still. We're at the bottom half
All
now.
right, never mind.
Okay, so I think we're going to take these items line by line so we can get consensus on each line item. So this morning we discussed the care center with the 3 million. Do we still have consensus on the care center, the 3 million that we're going to be? Consensus, yes. Okay, so we have consensus on the care center. The next one is the RTA funding allocation. Do we have consensus on the RTA? We have consensus on the RTA. The next is the 421 building solar. Do we have consensus on that? Look at, we got 2 hands up there. Krajewski is double voting over there. Remember that? So we have 2, we have consensus on the solar. We're moving on to the stormwater management grant. Do I have consensus on the stormwater management grant? Okay, that looks great. We have consensus on stormwater management. Clean and lean program contribution. Do we have consensus? We have consensus on the clean and lean.
This is like a loan though, because we will wind up leaning the property and eventually getting that. money
Exactly,
back.
correct.
That's why this is gonna be, I think this is gonna be self-propagating, because theoretically, we spend money on a project, we lean it, we get it back, we do more projects. The problem is, a lot of our original IDA grant is tied up in liens and court cases. And so this allows us to keep it propagating.
So this is like a neutral. We'll eventually get it back. and then
It all comes
zero
back, but we'll keep
cost.
using it year after year after year.
Okay, great. So we do have consensus on the clean and lean. The sheriff merit contribution. Do we have consensus? We have consensus on the sheriff merit
At what level?
contribution. That's the 150. And then, yeah, we don't, right now, I'm going with the 150 because that's what's right now. If it changes, we'll bring it back for consideration. Then we have the sheriff, the 501 garage and storage building. So it looks like it's half and half. Where's Member Zay? I don't know. Member Zay, where are you on that? Are you here? Member Eckhoff?
Down here, I'm for it.
Okay. Okay, so I would say, yeah, go ahead and move forward with
Maybe make a suggestion. We can move forward on the next level of design and go through due diligence in there, work with the sheriff, figure out how it all fits. And then we're the design, we won't go to final design, but we can move it forward to maybe have more education, more discussion here at the board level.
yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What you're doing is phase one engineering. And I think that's really important because then we got to see, you want to justify, because I heard that that building will not be able to put all of our vehicles in there, but you're talking merely phase one engineering on this project, correct?
So what we could do, if it's the will of the board, is we could plan on, like I said, this project wouldn't move forward till 2024 at the earliest. And so it's going to take a lot of due diligence. We can put this 10.5 million in a reserve and stick it there. And ultimately you as a board have the final say, but we can come back with design and then figure out if it's a worthwhile project.
Thank you. Okay, so I have questions from the body here. So I have Member Ozog, Member Desart, Member DeCiani, Member Selman. Did you have a question or no? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Member Ozog, go ahead, please.
Okay, so if we did a preliminary design or engineering, you looking at $250,000?
Not even that much. I think we could probably do it maybe 150. We
Okay.
could probably get some decent, conceptual, what are the functionality? How would it work?
Cost
maybe
per square foot?
get some dial in, some more cost on it, make sure and figure out. But in the meantime, we reserve the money. If we need the money for something else, it's there. If my guess is it'll take a couple months to even come back before this board.
Could we also ask for an alternative design with like the steel, garages rather than a huge facility? Could we have a scale? Could we see like two options maybe, or a couple different options for it?
We'll talk to the architect to have different options for the board to consider.
Yeah, I think that
Perhaps not something quite as, maybe something more, see what comes back. I'm
Yeah.
most interested in price
See what
per
the
square
options are.
foot.
Yeah, because every dime that we put in 10 million in a garage is 10 million we don't have to give back to our community. And I know all of you wanted to give to the community as well. So Member Desart?
Thank you. And that was going to be my main point. If we go ahead with this garage, a big, huge chunk of concrete, we're going to be spending our $40 million, every dime of it then, and that's $10.5 million, 25% of this surplus, 25%, 10.5 million that's not going to go to affordable housing, 10.5 million that's not going to go to food pantries, 10.5 million that's not going to go to jobs programs, 10.5 million that's not going to go to people. And that is really sad to me.
Thank you, Member Desart. Member DeCiani?
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. I've always supported the sheriff's office. I think it's important, but I also look at this as a large expense. It's 10.5 million. We can build schools with this. I look at the care center when I asked about possibly bringing back a couple of those floors, and you talked about $1.5 million in plumbing. Well, we could help a lot of people with a lot of challenges. We're having to ship our kids out of state because they're severe and profound, that we don't have any place in DuPage to house them. This could be a one-time cost. I'd almost like to see a cost on our care center as a renovation of those extra floors and look at what those costs would be, and maybe renting out facilities for this purpose of merit. I'm looking at, over half of our county utilizing NIPAS for a lot of these large vehicles, Elmhurst and Addison Burr Ridge and Bartlett and Carroll Stream, all members of NIPUS for a lot of these larger response vehicles. So, and they're for the most part renting properties from what I understand. So my concern is prioritizing our one-time costs. And I'd personally like to see the care center cost on a phase one, and how can we help our people better and still keep our county safe. I want to support the sheriff's office, but 10.5 million, we could put a lot more money into the care. Maybe we put 2 or 3 more million in the care center, and now we can service another 200 or 300 people that actually really severely need it, instead of having to send these people out of state to get services, which is where they're going right now. So again, it's about priorities. I want to keep the county safe. I'm probably one of the biggest hawks when it comes to that, but I also want to make sure that our money's being used the right way. So thank you.
Thank you, Member DeCiani. Member Bachowski.
You know, we have property and equipment that we spend, what, hundreds of thousands of dollars on, and they have to be put someplace. I think it's the cost, but let's look at the engineering study, because that's the big picture. This cost it seems like a lot of money to a lot of people, but we had a consensus to move forward. Then let's justify what we're putting in there and the reason for it. Then let's have no storage facilities. Let's have no containers, and we'll go from there. But we have to take a look at this, because I think with the quality of the equipment and the expense of the equipment, they have to be properly stored. And I would say, let's keep an open mind, because this figure didn't get pulled out of the air. Somebody came up with it, and let's see that they justify it at a phase one engineering, and then we can go from there. And if it's something we could scale back, we could scale back.
And I can tell you the figure you have before you, the 10.5 million, was arrived by an outside third-party architect, and we did drill down into it, but I think it's a good plan. You know, as far as going the next level of design, bring it before you for consideration. I think it's a solid, you know, methodical approach. I see, because there's a lot more design that has to be done.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I think staff, you have your direction, right? Nick and Jeff, you guys got your orders? Okay, thank you. I thank you all. I know that was a little tough getting through, but I appreciate it. Our next item. Oh, I'm sorry, Member Selman. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if we can sort of rearrange this agenda a little bit and table the 23 discussion, maybe until our meeting. I can't remember if it's the 13th or the 14th of September where the clerk is coming, maybe combine it there. And then that way we can get to our executive session, because we've been in committees now since 7:30 this morning. I think we're all kind of losing the decorum of the room. I'd like to make sure we're not just going on and on. And these two agendas were very full today.
They were very full, but you know, we still have we have a little bit of time if we can get it. I mean, what is the consensus? Do you guys want to pull one, or do you want to try to muddy through it and get it done today? Yeah, get it done today. Okay.
How long is executive session expected to take? That I think might help.
Jim, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I just don't understand why we're doing 2023 budget before we see the chairman's budget. I mean, I just don't get that. Why we're kind of going ahead of his presentation when we have nothing in front of us. I mean, why would we do that now?
So, I mean, the 2023, what Jeff has put together is simply a collaboration of what we know so far with departments, elected officials, what to come in. It's going to be a short presentation, but ultimately, Member Zay is correct. The chairman's going to have his version that comes to the board. We just wanted to update it. It's probably a 5-minute presentation, but that's the will of the board, whether you guys want to skip that and
maybe I could suggest
be
an email.
Yeah, Nick, it'll be 5 minutes with 45 minutes of discussion. That's what that will be.
Yeah. I can promise 5 minutes of presentation. I don't know about.
Yeah, Nick, you're short on promising on presentations.
I think this was kind of to go on with our budget workshop, which we didn't have in July, just to give the board members kind of like where we are with the budget right now. But if it's a consensus, if you guys want to push it off. You guys think, okay, we can do that. We can pull, so with leave of the body, we can pull the budget overview, and then we would move into our executive session. Yeah.
Well,
Oh, go ahead. Do you want to pull? Go ahead.
I had one question.
Microphone.
Oh, I
Brian.
thought I turned it on. Back to just the ARPA request.
Mhm.
I may just 2 minutes or 3 minutes, no question, or just because I know a number of people keep talking about food, and I know staff's gonna be coming back, but just 2 minutes, because you and I had a meeting last.
Yes, do you want, yes.
So I don't, wasn't there, so it started just with talking to a couple of local food pantries, and they all seem to have the same issues. So we had a meeting last week with staff and Chairman Chaplin and myself, but a lot of the food pantries are all 56 of them, but many of them have issues when they're ordering their food from Northern Illinois Food Bank. They order on a Monday, get delivered on Friday, and when they order it, the computer system shows it's there. When it shows up on Friday, they don't get as much. That was issue one, and it's because of the software program that doesn't tell you it goes bad on Tuesday. And then on Friday, when it does come, a lot of it is rotted, and they're basically a lot of it, and they're throwing it all out. It appears that some of the stores, this is kind of a phenomenon in the last year, that the stores are keeping stuff longer before they donate it. There's a transportation issue. And the third issue was some of the local pantries would like to be able to buy directly what they need for their people. So staff's going to be working with all the food pantries, the Northern Illinois Food Bank, to put together something that maybe come back and request some ARPA money. And then one note that came out this Friday was they have the ability also, Northern Illinois Food Bank, not only to buy fresh stuff at wholesale, they also can buy diapers and a few other supplies. So I think they included that, I think, what they sent to Mary. They will buy it at wholesale and then shipping it down here to DuPage. So that there's going to be ARPA money available, or at least the discussion with us to put ARPA aside. So staff's going to be working on that and coming to the board with some type of plan after working with both the Northern Illinois Food Bank, the food pantries here, and 56 of them in DuPage, and then the staff's expertise, and then coming to us. So we'll have something in the near future.
Yes, and thank you, Member Krajewski, for taking the lead on that. It was a very good meeting that we had last week. So really appreciate your efforts in that. Okay.
Chaplain,
Yes.
on this next item, at the advice of the state attorney, I'm going to do the first 3 or 4 slides open session,
Okay.
and we'll go into executive.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Just let me know.
So Wendy, if you want to bring up the next one. So, although you can't see the bow, there you go. So wanted to have some discussion moving forward regarding our employee COLAs and compensation. We've had a lot of discussions, a lot of comments over the board that the board has made in the past couple of months. Wanted to kind of bring that fruition so we can get some direction from a budgetary standpoint, what the will of the board is. So just to lay some groundwork for the board, so you know, as you guys make the decision a little bit with direction. So we all know consumer price index, inflation, what we've seen over the past couple of months. Here are 2 indicators that we've seen. The CPI, that's urban consumers, 9.1% increase. The CPI for urban wage earners and clerical workers, CPIW, 9.8%. So when you hear from our employees, when you hear from all employees that it's getting harder to live, this is the reason why. The prices of everything are going up, and our employees are feeling it as well. Next slide. So what we did is we did a pretty comprehensive survey of all of our neighboring communities, both municipalities, counties, even the state, to figure out what are they doing. And one thing I'll tell you is what we're experiencing here at the county regarding attracting and retaining our quality employees, they're all experiencing the same thing. We are all struggling, and we're stealing employees from each other, and it's a real phenomenon. Everybody's having shortfalls. But what we did find out in our surveys is the area counties, the collar counties, are giving anywhere from a 2 to a 4% COLA, and a number of them have merit in addition to that 2 and 4%. What's that? Counties first. So I've got all of them. So I mean, we looked at, as far as the various counties, I mean, all of the collar counties, Will, Lake, McHenry, Kane, Cook, Kendall. So, I mean, we looked at all of them. So 2 to 4% with merit. Area municipalities, little bit higher, which makes sense because we've seen, an exodus of our employees toward the municipal level. 2.25% to 4% COLA with a fairly sizable merit increase of the 2 to 4.5% in the COLA. The state's a little bit different. Although they are primarily union, there are some non-union. They are giving a 3.95% COLA across the board. And they do have a merit system in place that will also take into effect for this year. So it definitely varies out there, but the moral of the story is 2% doesn't look like it's the going rate anymore. I mean, just to be honest, I mean, that's what we're seeing. So next slide. So just to give you a little bit of background in our house here. So we have a number of our employees, our good employees that are union members. And the reason why it has, over the years, because every time we do a union negotiation, we look at their contracts and we do a market analysis. So every 4 years, it's kind of a reset on that. And so our non-union employees, they don't necessarily get that reset. They get the 2% every year, although our non-unions did get the adjustment at the end of last year, thanks to what the board did. You can see on here, we've got, a number of people where you see the big increases. That's usually where a union contract gets enacted, because we do a market analysis of all the area communities and we're like, oh, we're 12% off. We need to adjust to be able to be competitive. And that's what you see. And then they move forward with 2%. I will tell you, lately, I mean, we've been negotiating contracts. I mean, you had arbitration awarding contracts beyond the 2% as well. So it's definitely, the pressure points are out there. Next slide. So this is our non-union employees here at the county. You've got, it's broken down by grades, from the lowest grade to the highest grade, number of people we have in here, average salary. This gives you an idea, because there's been a lot of discussion about, do we do something for our lower paid employees? And I think the answer is yes. I think that's definitely worthwhile to consider, and we'll get into that. You've got, I will say that HR, Margaret is doing a tremendous job on trying to eliminate the 106 and 107s at the bottom of the range, reclassifying them. There's very few of those left, and they're hopeful by the end of the year, most of those will be reclassified into a higher wage. And that's just the natural progression of where they are. So that is absolutely a focal point of HR, and it has been. So you can kind of see how it's divided, where they sit. You have a lot, and these are only non-union. So you have a lot in the 109, if I remember correctly. So you have a number of employees, 109, 110, 111, which those are your lower paid employees here at the county. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Next slide. So this is the point where I would ask maybe we go into executive session.
Okay. Yeah, so pursuant to Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 120/2 C1, compensation of employees. Can we have a motion to go into executive session? Motion by Pachowski, second by Selman. All those in favor? Okay, we're heading into executive session. I think we're going to take a few minutes, 5 minutes break in between.
We'll get you guys out.
If you're currently on the Zoom call, please drop from the call or I'll have to remove you. Thank you.